I'm Joy Harris. The recipe I'm preparing today from Easy Breezy Florida Cooking is a Cuban bread pizza. Now, I'm going to start with the roasted tomato sauce because this has to cook for about 30 minutes. And I already have some that's cooked up for me, but I just want to show you the steps to doing this. You'll need 6 rather large tomatoes. And if you can't find the larger ones, then you'll probably need about 8 of the smaller tomatoes. And they need to be seeded and chopped. So the first thing you'll need to do is cut the tomatoes in quarters, as I've done here, and then I just cut off the stem end of the tomato. Now, I'm just going to cut the centers out, and they come out quite easily with a knife, and then just scrape out the seeds. The juicier and the riper the tomatoes are, the easier it is to get the seeds and the insides out. And I've already done about 6 or 7 tomatoes, so this will make the 8th one to go into this sauce. But I did want to show you how quick and easy it is to seed these tomatoes. Because for this pizza, this is probably the most time-consuming part, just getting the tomatoes ready. But once you have the seeds out, then they need to be sliced and then diced. And fairly small. They don't need to be minced, and you don't want large chunks either. But you don't want them to turn them to mush, because what we're going to do is roast them in the oven for about 30 minutes. And you still want them to be large enough that they'll retain their shape somewhat, because we're going to end up kind of mashing them together after they're cooked. But this way they'll retain a lot more of their flavor. So in here I have the tomatoes, and then to that I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of chopped onion. I like to use sweet onion, so I'll look for a Vidalia onion or a Florida sweet onion or any sweet onion out there. The reason, I don't want the onion to overpower the other flavors. When I eat the pizza, I want to be able to think more about the tomato sauce that's in there and not be too oniony. So that goes in there. And then also we have a little garlic to go with it. So these are 3 cloves of minced garlic, 2 tablespoons of a light olive oil, a teaspoon or 2 of salt, depending on how salty you like it. The salt, you can kind of be a judge, and the same with the pepper. I put in about 3/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. And then I still like to add about 2 teaspoons of sugar. So this scoop holds a tablespoon, so if I use a little less than what's in the scoop, then that gives me about 2 teaspoons of sugar. And then the ingredient that gives it that wonderful pizza smell, oregano. So this is dried crushed oregano. Now, just give this a quick stir. And then this goes into the oven, and you're going to roast it for about 30 minutes. So a pretty hot oven, 450-degree oven. Put it in there for 30 minutes. And I have one that I just took out of the oven. And one thing I wanted to point out, yeah, it's not too hot to hold now. This one's, the juices, it cooked out most of the juices, and that's what you want, because once you begin mashing them a little, not too much, you want it a little bit chunky, but just to make it more of a sauce-like consistency, some more of the juices will come out. When you take it out of the oven, if it's still very watery, rather than putting it back in the oven and cooking it, you can just, because it's a Dutch oven, you can put it on the stove, turn on the heat, stir it, watch it until it's gotten a little more thick. So this is a pretty thick consistency, and we're ready to go to the next phase, which is the Cuban bread. So for this, you only need about 1/3 of a loaf of Cuban bread. So I have that right here, and 1/3 is about 12 inches. And I have the middle section here, but you can use the end section. Some people like the end pieces. Just cut it in half, and then with a spoon on your roasted tomato sauce. And this is enough to do, like I said, 1/3 of the Cuban bread. There's enough sauce in here to cover that. And then the only other thing we're going to do after we've covered it with the tomato sauce is top it off with mozzarella cheese. And that'll take about a cup of the mozzarella cheese. But at this point, if you wanted to add some pepperoni or some olives or anything that you like on your pizza, you can add it at this point. And then you top it off with the cheese. It looks so good. It smells so good too. Your house will smell like a pizzeria when you start making this. As soon as those onions and tomatoes and garlic start roasting in the oven and you can smell them, it's wonderful. Now, this goes back into the oven too. Just enough to melt the cheese. At this point, you can either cut it into bite-sized pieces with a pizza cutter, or you can put it into the oven, and then when you take it out, cut it up. And I fixed up a plate of pizza just for you. And when I serve my pizza, I like to garnish it with a little basil and fresh oregano. And this is Cuban bread pizza with a roasted tomato sauce. It's from Easy Breezy Florida Cooking. A portion of the proceeds from the sale of Easy Breezy Florida Cooking goes to Feeding America. Cuban bread pizza with roasted tomato sauce. Eat and enjoy.